The kids' laughter echoed through the park as they raced across the grass. But hidden beneath one of the benches, a dark secret lay. A tiny microphone, installed by the HOA to monitor their every move. What the board didn't know was that one residence teenager had already found it. And he was about to blow the lid off this twisted scandal. Tyler stared down at the small, unassuming device embedded in the weathered wood. His fingers traced the outline, mind racing. Microphones. In the public park. The HOA had truly gone too far this time. He glanced around, heart pounding. What if someone saw him? Better to act fast before they realized he knew. Carefully, he pried the microphone loose, stashing it in his pocket. Evidence. He'd need to find a way to expose this without the board catching wind. As he hurried home, Tyler's mind spun with possibilities. The local news would love a juicy story about an HOA spying on its own residents. And his dad, the neighborhood's top lawyer, would probably take the case pro bono. Justice would be served, and the corrupt board members would face the consequences they deserved. That night at the dinner table, Tyler could barely contain his excitement. "You're not going to believe what I found in the park today," he blurted out, earning quizzical looks from his parents. His father, renowned attorney Jack Whitman, leaned forward. "What is it, son?" With a grin, Tyler produced the tiny microphone, watching his father's brow furrow. "The HOA has been monitoring everyone in the park. Can you believe the nerve of those people?" Jack's eyes narrowed as he examined the device, mouth set in a grim line. "This is a serious violation of privacy. We need to take action immediately." His wife, Emily, shook her head in disbelief. "I knew those board members were power-hungry, but this is a whole new level of unacceptable." "We can't let them get away with this," Tyler insisted, passion burning in his chest. "Everyone in the neighborhood deserves to know what's been going on." Jack raised a hand, expression thoughtful. "Hold on, Tyler. As much as I agree that the HOA has overstepped their bounds, we need to approach this carefully. If we move too fast, they could bury the evidence or turn the neighborhood against us." Disappointment flickered across Tyler's face, but he nodded reluctantly. "Okay, Dad. What's the plan, then?" "First, I want to document everything thoroughly," Jack said, already lost in thought. "We'll need to canvass the park, look for any other hidden microphones. Then we'll start building our case, gather witness statements, and prepare to take this to the media and the authorities." Emily reached across the table, squeezing Tyler's hand. "I know you're eager for justice, sweetheart. But your father's right. We have to be strategic about this. The HOA won't go down without a fight." Tyler let out a heavy sigh, anxiety and determination warring within him. This was bigger than he imagined. But if anyone could take down the corrupt board, it was his dad. "All right, let's do it." The next morning, Tyler and his father returned to the park, carefully combing the area around the benches. Jack's expression grew increasingly grim as they discovered 2 more hidden microphones, expertly concealed in the wood and foliage. "This is worse than I thought," Jack muttered, pocketing the devices. "The HOA has been systematically violating the privacy of every person who uses this park." Tyler clenched his fists, anger burning in his chest. "We have to stop them, Dad. They can't just spy on everyone like this." Jack nodded, brow furrowed in thought. "I agree, son. But we need to be strategic. If we move too fast, they could cover their tracks or turn the neighborhood against us." As they made their way home, Tyler's mind raced with possibilities. Can't we just take the microphones to the news? Expose the whole thing? "I wish it were that simple," Jack sighed. "The HOA has deep pockets and plenty of political connections. They'll try to discredit us, claim it's all a misunderstanding. We need ironclad evidence and a rock-solid legal strategy." That evening, the Whitman family convened in Jack's study, poring over the confiscated microphones and sketching out their plan of attack. Tyler listened intently, his initial excitement tempered by the gravity of the situation. Okay, here's what we're going to do, Jack said, his voice calm and authoritative. First, I'll reach out to a few trusted neighbors, see if they're willing to go on the record about the HOA's activities. We need eyewitness accounts to back up the physical evidence. And then, Tyler asked, leaning forward in his chair. Then, I'll send a formal letter to the HOA board, demanding an immediate cease and desist on all surveillance activities, Jack continued. We'll give them a chance to come clean and rectify the situation. If they refuse, we'll take them to court. Emily placed a comforting hand on Tyler's arm. I know this is frustrating, sweetheart, but your father knows what he's doing. We have to play this smart if we want to take the HOA down for good. Tyler nodded slowly, resolve hardening in his eyes. All right, let's do it. Over the next few days, the Whitmans executed their plan with precision. Jack's letter to the HOA board was met with predictable denials and accusations of slander. But as more residents came forward with their own stories of feeling watched and violated, the tide began to turn. With each passing day, Tyler's anticipation grew. He could practically taste the justice on the horizon, the corrupt board members finally being held accountable for their actions. This was their chance to make a real difference in the community. The stage was set for an epic showdown, and the Whitmans were more than ready. The emergency HOA meeting was a circus of heated accusations and defensive posturing. Jack Whitman stood at the podium, his calm demeanor a stark contrast to the frenzied crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, the evidence we'd gathered is irrefutable, he said, his voice cutting through the din. The HOA board has been systematically violating the privacy of this community by installing hidden microphones in our public park. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the audience as Jack displayed the confiscated devices. Tyler watched from the sidelines, pride and anticipation swelling in his chest. Finally, the truth was being exposed. One of the board members, a sharp-featured woman named Eliza Sinclair, stepped forward, her eyes narrowed. This is an outrageous accusation, Mr. Whitman. You have no proof that these microphones were placed by the HOA. Jack raised a brow, unperturbed. Actually, Mrs. Sinclair, we have witness statements from several residents who saw your maintenance crew installing these devices. Not to mention the fact that they were hidden in areas exclusively controlled by the HOA. Eliza's face flushed with anger, but before she could retort, another board member, a portly man named Gerald Hastings, interjected. This is all a smear campaign. The Whitman family is trying to undermine the HOA's authority for their own personal gain. The crowd erupted in a cacophony of shouts and protests, tensions boiling over. Tyler felt a surge of satisfaction, watching the corrupt board members squirm under the weight of their own misdeeds. Jack raised a hand, commanding the room's attention. Ladies and gentlemen, I understand your anger and frustration. But the facts are clear. The HOA has overstepped its bounds and violated the trust of this community. The only way to move forward is with transparency and accountability. Eliza sneered, her composure cracking. You think you can just waltz in here and tell us how to run our own neighborhood? This is an HOA matter, and we'll handle it as we see fit. That's where you're wrong, Mrs. Sinclair, Jack retorted, his tone steely. The moment you started spying on law-abiding citizens, this became a matter of public interest, and we intend to take this all the way to the courts if necessary. The crowd erupted in applause, fueling Tyler's sense of triumph. He watched as the board members exchanged panicked glances, realizing that their carefully constructed web of secrecy was unraveling. As the meeting descended into chaos, Tyler couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. His father was standing up to the corrupt powers that be, fighting for justice on behalf of the entire community. And with the evidence they'd gathered, victory seemed within reach. The Whitmans were just getting started. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal maneuvering and public scrutiny. Jack Whitman's formal lawsuit against the HOA board had sparked a media frenzy, with reporters and camera crews swarming the neighborhood. Tyler watched with a mix of excitement and trepidation as his father masterfully navigated the intricate web of legal proceedings. The board members, once so confident in their authority, now found themselves on the defensive, their every move scrutinized under the glare of the public eye. During a particularly heated court hearing, Eliza Sinclair attempted to dismiss the case, claiming the Whitmans had no grounds to challenge the HOA's actions. But Jack was relentless, methodically dismantling her arguments and highlighting the clear violations of privacy. The residents of this community have a fundamental right to feel safe and secure in their own public spaces, he argued, his gaze unwavering. The HOA's actions have robbed them of that basic freedom, and we will not rest until justice is served. The judge listened intently, brow furrowed in concentration. Tyler held his breath, watching the proceedings with rapt attention. This was the moment they had been building towards, the chance to finally bring the corrupt board to its knees. As the judge delivered her ruling, the tension in the courtroom was palpable. The court finds the evidence presented by the plaintiffs to be compelling and irrefutable, she proclaimed. The HOA board is hereby ordered to immediately cease all surveillance activities and remove any and all monitoring devices from the public park. A collective gasp of relief and triumph swept through the room, and Tyler couldn't contain his grin. The Whitmans had won, the first decisive victory in their battle against the HOA's abuses of power. But the celebrations were short-lived. As the board members filed out of the courtroom, their faces etched with fury, Tyler couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. He knew they wouldn't go down without a fight. That evening, as the Whitman family gathered around the dinner table, the atmosphere was tense and uneasy. "We can't let our guard down," Jack warned, his expression grave. "The HOA board is powerful, and they'll be looking for any opportunity to retaliate." Emily reached across the table, squeezing Tyler's hand. "We knew this wasn't going to be easy, sweetheart. But we're in it for the long haul. Whatever they throw at us, we'll be ready." Tyler nodded, his determination unwavering. "I'm with you, Dad. We're not going to let them push us around anymore." The storm was far from over, but the Whitmans had planted their flag. They were ready to face whatever came next, united in their quest for justice. The retaliatory strikes from the HOA board came swiftly and without mercy. First, it was a smear campaign in the local newspaper, painting the Whitmans as disruptive troublemakers and accusing them of having a personal vendetta against the community. Tyler watched in frustration as the headlines twisted the facts, portraying his family as the villains. But Jack remained steadfast, issuing carefully worded statements and refusing to be drawn into the mudslinging. "They're trying to discredit us, to turn the neighborhood against us," Jack said, his brow furrowed in concentration. "But we can't let them get under our skin. We have to stay focused on the facts and keep our eyes on the prize." Emily squeezed Tyler's shoulder, her expression reassuring. "Your father's right, sweetheart. We knew this was going to be a battle, and we're not going to back down just because they're playing dirty." But the HOA board's retaliation didn't stop there. Soon, Tyler's friends and neighbors began to distance themselves, wary of the growing conflict. Invitations to neighborhood events dried up, and the once friendly faces of the community now eyed the Whitmans with suspicion. "It's just like they're trying to isolate us," Tyler seethed, his fists clenched in frustration. "They can't win on the facts, so they're trying to make us social pariahs instead." Jack nodded, his expression grim. "That's exactly what they're doing, son. But we can't let them break our spirit. We have to stand firm and continue to fight for what's right." The final blow came when the HOA board announced plans to revoke the Whitmans' membership and ban them from the community entirely. The move was a clear attempt to silence them, to remove their voice from the ongoing battle. "They can't do that," Tyler exclaimed, his eyes wide with disbelief. "This is our home, our neighborhood. They can't just kick us out." "Oh, but they can, Tyler," Jack countered, his expression grim. "The HOA has broad powers, and they're using them to try and intimidate us. But we won't back down. We'll take this to court, and we'll fight them every step of the way." As the Whitmans stood their ground, the tension in the neighborhood reached a fever pitch. Neighbors who had once been friendly now eyed them with suspicion, caught in the middle of a conflict they barely understood. The battle lines had been drawn, and the Whitmans were determined to emerge victorious. But the cost of their crusade was becoming increasingly clear, and the consequences were mounting with each passing day. The courtroom was a cauldron of emotions as the Whitmans squared off against the HOA board. Tempers flared, accusations flew, and the air crackled with the intensity of the conflict. Jack Whitman stood tall, his voice unwavering as he argued passionately against the board's attempts to revoke his family's membership. "This is a blatant abuse of power, Your Honor," he declared, his gaze sweeping across the room. "The HOA is using its authority to silence and punish a family for daring to stand up against their unlawful actions." Eliza Sinclair, the HOA board spokesperson, countered with a venomous retort. "The Whitmans have shown a complete disregard for the rules and regulations of this community. Their actions have disrupted the peace and caused undue stress for their neighbors. Revoking their membership is a necessary measure to restore order." Tyler watched the exchange with a mixture of pride and anguish. He'd admired his father's unwavering resolve, but the thought of losing their home and being cast out from the only community they'd ever known was a bitter pill to swallow. As the hearing dragged on, the tension in the room palpable, the judge finally raised a hand, silencing the warring parties. "I've heard enough," she said, her voice stern. "This is a complex and highly contentious matter, and I need time to carefully consider all the evidence and arguments presented." Tyler's heart sank as the judge continued, "I will issue my ruling in the coming days. Until then, the status quo will remain in place. The Whitman family will retain their HOA membership and access to the community." A collective sigh of relief swept through the Whitman camp, while the HOA board members exchanged frustrated glances. The battle was far from over, but they had secured a temporary reprieve. As they filed out of the courthouse, Tyler turned to his parents, his expression troubled. "What if the judge rules against us? We could lose everything." Emily wrapped an arm around her son's shoulders, her gaze resolute. "Whatever happens, we'll face it together. Your father has fought so hard to expose the truth, and we won't give up now." Jack nodded, his hand resting firmly on Tyler's back. "She's right, son. We've come too far to back down. We'll continue to fight, no matter the cost. This isn't just about our family anymore. It's about standing up for the rights of the entire community." Tyler took a deep breath, drawing strength from his parents' unwavering determination. The road ahead was uncertain, but the Whitmans were more resolute than ever. They would see this through to the end, no matter what obstacles stood in their way. The tension in the Whitman household was palpable as they awaited the judge's ruling. Tyler paced the living room, his mind racing with 1,000 anxious thoughts. What if the judge sided with the HOA board? Would they really have to leave their home and their community behind? Emily watched her son with a concerned expression, reaching out to gently grasp his arm. "Sweetheart, you need to try and stay calm. Your father is doing everything in his power to protect us." Tyler nodded, taking a deep breath. "I know, Mom. It's just, this whole thing has been so overwhelming. I never thought the HOA would go this far to silence us." Jack entered the room, his expression grave. "The judge's decision has been made. We need to go to the courthouse immediately." Tyler felt his heart skip a beat, his palms suddenly clammy. "What does that mean? Did we win?" "I don't know, son," Jack replied, his tone measured. "But we need to be there to hear the ruling." The drive to the courthouse was tense and silent. Tyler's mind whirled with possibilities, each one more dire than the last. He couldn't bear the thought of losing his home, his friends, his entire way of life. As they entered the courtroom, Tyler felt all eyes turned towards them. The HOA board members were seated, their expressions unreadable. The judge cleared her throat, commanding the room's attention. This has been a complex and highly charged case, with valid arguments on both sides, she began, her gaze sweeping across the room. However, after careful consideration of the evidence and the testimony presented, I have reached a decision. Tyler held his breath, his heart pounding in his ears. The judge's next words would determine the course of their lives. The Whitman family's HOA membership and access to the community will be reinstated, effective immediately. She paused, her expression stern. Furthermore, the HOA board is hereby ordered to cease and desist all surveillance activities within the neighborhood, and to remove any and all monitoring devices from public spaces. A collective gasp of relief and triumph swept through the room, and Tyler felt a wave of elation wash over him. They had won. The Whitmans had stood up to the corrupt HOA board and emerged victorious. As the judge continued to outline the terms of her ruling, Tyler glanced at his parents, their faces alight with a mixture of pride and relief. They had weathered the storm, and their unwavering determination had paid off. The battle may have been won, but Tyler knew the war was far from over. The HOA board would not give up easily, and the Whitmans would need to remain vigilant. But in this moment, they savored the sweet taste of justice, a testament to the power of standing up for what's right. In the aftermath of the court victory, the Whitman family found themselves at the center of a whirlwind of attention. The local media scrambled to cover the story, hailing the family as heroes who had stood up to the tyranny of the HOA. Tyler watched with a mix of pride and discomfort as his family was thrust into the spotlight. Neighbors who had once shunned them now sought them out, eager to offer apologies and expressions of support. "I can't believe we ever doubted you," one woman confessed, her eyes brimming with guilt. "We should have known the HOA was up to no good." Jack nodded graciously, his diplomatic demeanor belying the turmoil they had endured. "We're just glad the truth has been revealed and that justice has been served. Now it's time for our community to come together and heal." As the dust settled, the Whitmans found themselves at a crossroads. The HOA board, humiliated and stripped of their power, had retreated, but Tyler knew it was only a matter of time before they struck back. "We can't let our guard down," he warned his parents one evening over dinner. "The board is going to find a way to get even. They won't stop until they've destroyed us." Jack regarded his son with a thoughtful expression. "You're right, Tyler. This isn't over. But we've proven that we're willing to fight for what's right, and that gives us leverage." He paused, a determined glint in his eye. "From now on, we'll be proactive. We'll keep a close eye on the HOA's activities and be ready to respond at a moment's notice." Emily reached across the table, squeezing Tyler's hand. "Your father's right. We've come too far to back down now. This community needs us, and we're not going anywhere." Tyler felt a surge of resolve course through him. The Whitmans had emerged from this ordeal stronger and more united than ever before. They were no longer just a family fighting for their own interests. They were champions of the community, standing up against the corruption and abuse of power. As the weeks passed, the Whitmans remained vigilant, closely monitoring the HOA's every move. And when the board members inevitably tried to retaliate, the family was ready, meeting their challenges head-on with the full force of the law and the unwavering support of their neighbors. In the end, the Whitmans' unwavering determination and commitment to justice had won the day. The corrupt HOA board was dismantled, its members facing legal consequences for their actions. And the community, once divided, had come together in a shared victory, a testament to the power of standing up for what's right. For Tyler, the journey had been a tumultuous one, but he emerged from it with a newfound sense of purpose and pride. He knew that the fight against injustice was never ending, but with his family by his side, he was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead.